Alright, before we get started, I wanted to show you guys the products I'm using. On the left is the 3M adhesive remover, and it is what I'll use to prep the surface and get rid of any previous adhesive. And then on the right hand side is the Cami 303. That's the adhesive, and you want to make sure that when you're finding this bottle that it's for foam and fabric or upholstery. They have a screen printing glue that's not good for the situation. You can find both of them on Amazon, I think Prime. They should be pretty easy to come across. Then the next step is the next tool that we're going to need is the scissors. And the scissors are only needed at the very end just to cut the last little piece off that I've created for room for pulling. And then a flathead screwdriver or a plastic card scraper, something like that. When you're using the flathead screwdriver, if you're using, make sure and do it gently. You don't want to poke the fabric with it or damage the edges. Alright, before I start this video, I wanted to let you guys know that I have already removed the fabric off the door panel before I started this video. So technically there should be a piece of fabric there where there's glue. Alright, so our first step is going to be taking the weather stripping off. There are multiple teeth underneath all along the top edge of the door. So you just gotta pry them open to the vertical position, go all the way down the top edge of the door, and when you get to the last one you'll be able to turn it upright again and then just peel the top off. If you have any issue with it, it's more than likely because you don't have the teeth perfectly vertical enough to pull it out. Alright, so now that we have the door ready, we have the fabric off, we have the weather stripping off, the surface is prepped and ready for the fabric. So now what we're going to do is we're going to center the fabric over the groove. And the groove is this outlined area. When we get this fabric centered on there, it's going to be a little heavy on the bottom. This bottom groove's a little deeper than the top groove here. So you have a little bit more room to tuck fabric at the bottom. Alright, so now we're going to get the fabric centered over this area. And in order to do that, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of slack in the fabric, that you're not pulling it apart too much, as that will change the shape of it. When I get it laid down, my first checking point is the bottom groove, as that's where the deepest groove is. So if you don't have it sucked into that groove all the way in there, it won't be fitting at the top very well. So you just want to check and make sure and look at that groove. If your first attempt isn't centered, then take the fabric off and start over again. This is really the most important step, as everything hereafter, if you get it centered right, is a cakewalk. If you don't get it centered, then you end up with fabric needing to be cut or fabric coming up too short, so on and so forth. And you really just wanna take the time to get it in there right. So also, when we're looking at this bottom groove, what we're looking for is for the fabric that you're laying down to look like it's kissing the fabric that's attached to the door panel. And you'll see what I'm talking about when you come up too short. You'll literally see the line of the fabric not go into the groove enough. Another important technique is moving the fabric from the center out, straight out. So you're not trying to make any S shapes or curves or anything like that. You just kind of want to move from the center straight out. And you want to apply a little bit of a pressure to a lot of pressure depending on how much you want to move the fabric over. Another really great technique is having the adhesive. If you prepped it too well with the adhesive remover, you can take the adhesive and spray it one time, let it dry for 5 to 10 minutes just on the door panel, not the fabric itself, and it'll create some tackiness to give you some resistance with the fabric when you're trying to lay it down so things don't move so easily. Alright, so now that we have the fabric all centered out, we're gonna take and spray the door panel and then spray the fabric. And you're going to want to let it wait a second. You want to kind of let the glue dry a little bit to create some tackiness between the two pieces, as when the glue is first sprayed it's just a little wet. Alright, so now the glue is dried and we're just going to lay it down and then go around and tuck these edges in. Once you've got the top side glued in, you're just going to go around and work your way around the fabric, taking it back, gluing the panel, gluing the fabric, letting it dry a little bit, and then laying it down again and filling it into the grooves. Now it's dried, and all we have to do is just kind of let the fabric fall into place, brushing out any possible air pockets and any bumps. Just moving it from the center out. So you've moved around to all sides and you've got this last little piece left. And you just want to continue the same steps that you've had before, but with this one you just want to be really easy just because it's such a smaller piece and it can give. So just slowly apply it. Alright, so you can see here that I had to take a step back and undo it because it wasn't lining up right. So from here I'm just going to take it back a little bit and just kind of more gingerly lay it down little sections at a time and make sure that it's all lining up into that groove okay. So just picking up the fabric and stretching it a little bit, very tiny bits, and then laying it back down again, and then running your finger down into the groove. You'll see it's pretty easy to rub those little wrinkles out. Alright, so now we're at the final steps where we just need to take our flathead screwdriver or a plastic credit card, scraper, something like that, to fit into the groove. Alright, so here you can see what I mean by fitting the fabric into the groove. You want to, when you're doing this, you don't want to run the tool through the groove and like hoping that it's going to press the fabric down. It'll actually move it and then change the shape. So you just got to go a little bit at a time, inch by inch, pressing down the fabric from there. And if you have any issue where you don't think the fabric is down there enough, just push it down with your thumb, sliding it into the groove more. So now that we have the fabric tucked in everywhere, our last step is to take the edge of the fabric and tuck it behind and over the door. The way that I like to do it is I like to fold the fabric, just give it a small fold, and then tuck it and pull. Alright, we're at this last step where once the fabric is all tucked in everywhere, we just have to pull it over and make holes in the fabric for the teeth to go through from the weather stripping. Once the holes are made in the fabric, put the teeth of the weather stripping through the holes and then tuck the teeth into the door and pry them closed. Once you've got the teeth closed, all that's really left is to use your scissors to cut that little excess of fabric off. Alright, so everything is in. All that's left is to take your adhesive remover and clean the fabric and the door panel. In this case, you don't want to clean any of this though yet until everything is dried. So I would give everything a 24-hour period, but for video's sake, I just wanted to show you guys.